Would any of you believe me if I told you that only a third of medical students finish their actual medical degree? Well, the reason why only one third of these students who are in medical school actually finish and get their degree is because they tend to form physiological disorders like anxiety or depression, which prevent them ultimately from even completing anything in their program. Studies have been shown in different states, countries, schools, and so on that determine the amounts of stress that students actually do endure and then how do they cope with it. So I'll go over all those statistics and then we'll learn how to actually cope with stress when we're going through our college career. As we all know, stress may not only impact our mood, but it does impact our performance more than we actually realize. So I will go over that. According to Dahlia Badawi and Adele Gabriel, 2/3 of students are affected by stress or anxiety. Now, when I say 2/3, it may not sound bad or like just dealing with maths, 2/3 isn't entirely too much. But let's take a school like Brookhaven College into consideration. Most public community colleges have around 6,500 students, something small but not too big where it's not too crowded. So let's take the 6,500 students who may go to Brookhaven College. Now, out of those 6,500, 2/3 of those students would be 4,300 roughly. So 4,300 students out of 65 is actually a really big number when you put those together to next to the 2/3. Kind of gives you and gives you more of a realization of how many students are affected by this kind of psychological issue. Studies have also been done not just on location, school studies, but also on genders. So statistics have found that it might not be surprising, but most women are the ones who experience more stress or anxiety than men. Men tend to not hold on to any stress as much, especially when it comes to school. And another reason why that may be is because stress tends to have a adverse reaction on students. So this may be possible in more men than women. So according to Struthers, Perry, and Manek, when students have negative experiences or they become, let's say, depressed or anxious about what's going on in their school life, they tend to have adverse effects on their performance. So say if someone is experiencing something that's really stressful, it's just not clicking, they're not understanding anything that's going on in their class, they may just ultimately, as a way to eliminate that stress, is to just stop going to class. Or let's say if going to class isn't a big deal, maybe they'll just stop doing the homework, and that's how they deal with their stress management. So that's kind of how performance can be affected. And then, like I mentioned in my beginning of my speech, only a third of students finish their medical degree. Abdul Ghani's studies have shown that mental illness has not only worsened in the beginning of someone's college career, but it actually does prolong throughout. So if someone feels a great amount of stress in the beginning of their college career, or say they get into a program where you just have to complete it in that just you have a complete time frame. So if they enter feeling stressed, it can only worsen. If it does get a little better, it doesn't completely go away, or it just may stay the same completely throughout until they graduate. So far, do any of these statistics sound surprising to you guys, or do they kind of sound just about right? Okay, so my next question for you all is, when you guys first entered school, did you feel like it was more stressful then, or do you feel like the stress now that you are into school and doing your courses, is it more stressful now than when you first began? Okay, and so some studies have been shown that in the beginning years of college, Stress levels are actually way higher when you first begin college, and some of us may not realize it. Some of us recognize our first years as the easiest, but the stress actually comes from a different perspective, and that may be like Naraswapa Kumaraswamy stated, students may react completely differently to a whole new setting. Say they're put into a dorm and this is their first time being out of their parents' house. That may be stressful on them and may not be too hard. Where, say, like school may not be that difficult, but being away from home for the first time maybe. So another source of stress relief that some students can is to maybe just find times to relax. Say if they do experience some type of separation anxiety from being home. And then you guys are probably thinking, what about stress related to schoolwork and not so much new environments? So for students who are experiencing stress within classwork, workloads, time management, it's important to make sure that you guys get involved in things from extracurricular activities. If you feel like you're involved in too much, maybe find time to relax and just rewind, because that is a huge part of time management, is still finding time to recuperate, rejuvenate, and just not feel like all you do is study. It's important to take breaks, get a snack. Our brains can't work correctly without us having the proper nutrients. And just remember that there's always tomorrow. So we always don't want to feel sleep deprived, because when we tend to feel sleep deprived or we're not getting enough nutrients, we actually perform not as well than we would if we were in proper health. Okay? Thank you guys.